Okay, let's unpack this. You know, when you picture a career in therapy, whether that's speech therapy, physical therapy, or occupational therapy, you probably just imagine the actual therapy.
Right, the clinical side of things.
Exactly. You picture yourself helping a stroke survivor regain their ability to speak or, guiding a high school athlete through this grueling knee rehab.
We're helping a kid with their fine motor
Yeah,
skills.
exactly. What you almost certainly do not picture is sitting entirely alone at a desk at 9 p.m. on a Friday, just staring at a blinking cursor.
Oh, that is a very real, very painful scenario for a lot of people.
Right. Desperately trying to remember the exact issuance date of a certification you earned like 10 years ago
Hmm.
because you are terrified that if you type one digit wrong, your clinic won't get paid for 3 months.
Yeah, it's the unseen and frankly completely unglamorous engine that keeps the entire clinical side running. And for a lot of practitioners, that Friday night panic is just a harsh reality.
It is a brutal reality. And today, we are going to tear down the walls of that specific frustration. We're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating source.
Yeah, it's a very comprehensive article.
Yeah, it's a guide published on February 23, 2026, authored by Oliver in Credentialing News, which is on the Prime Credential website.
Titled The Ultimate Guide to Therapy Insurance Panel Applications.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive is to serve as your ultimate shortcut. We want to demystify this incredibly daunting, heavily bureaucratic process of insurance paneling.
Because for you, the listener, understanding the mechanics of the system is really the only way you can actually grow a therapy practice.
Right, without completely drowning in administrative quicksand.
And setting the stage for why this specific hurdle matters is critical. Because getting paneled, which is really just the industry's jargon for becoming an approved in-network provider, is the absolute lifeblood of practice growth.
Because it lets you bill the insurance directly.
Precisely. Being in-network allows clinics to bill insurers directly. Without that status, you are relying entirely on patients who have the financial means to pay completely out of pocket.
Which is a huge barrier for most people.
Exactly. It severely limits your reach in the community and it drastically caps your revenue potential. But the crazy part is, the barrier to entry into these networks isn't your clinical skill.
No, not at all.
It is entirely paperwork-based.
Which leads us perfectly into the first major phase. Because before you can even think about looking at an insurance company's application portal, you need to gather your raw materials.
The documentation phase.
Right, and Oliver's guide outlines this in detail. Reading through it, I kept thinking about the process of packing for a highly secure, vital international trip.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, because think about it. If you show up to the airport border security without your passport, it doesn't matter how meticulously you packed your bags.
Or how great your itinerary is.
Exactly. Nothing else matters. You are not getting on that plane.
Yeah.
In the credentialing world, your packing list is rigidly specific.
Very specific.
So let's go through the facts from the guide. First up, obviously you need your active state professional license.
And any specialty certifications, like specific board credentials.
Right. Then there's the NPI.
The National Provider Identifier.
Yeah, which is a unique 10-digit ID. And the guide notes this is issued by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
You also need a really comprehensive list of all your license numbers, their exact expiration dates, your degrees, and your training certificates.
And here is where I started to get genuinely confused by the sheer volume of paper they want. The article specifically points out that Medicare's enrollment guidelines explicitly require your professional degrees and certificates.
They do.
But wait, hold on. If I have been a licensed physical therapist in, say, the state of Ohio for a decade, and the state board has already vetted me, why on earth does Medicare need me to dig into my attic to find my original college diploma?
It sounds totally redundant, I know.
Doesn't the active state license already prove that I went to school?
You would certainly think so. And from a purely logical standpoint, it feels like complete overkill. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, insurers and federal programs like Medicare do not rely on transitive trust.
Transitive trust, meaning they don't just take the state board's word for it.
Exactly. From the insurer's perspective, this mountain of upfront documentation isn't just malicious busywork. It is fundamental risk mitigation.
Ah, okay. Risk mitigation.
Right. They are essentially vouching for your competency and your legitimacy to their policyholders. By verifying your original degrees, your background checks, and your academic transcripts themselves, they are closing any potential loopholes.
Because patient safety is on the line.
Patient safety and liability. They have a massive legal and financial imperative to know exactly who is treating their members. Because if an unqualified provider harms a patient, the insurer could easily be caught in the liability fallout.
I mean, I understand the theory of risk mitigation, but in practice, it sounds maddening.
It is a lot to manage.
And the list doesn't even stop at transcripts and diplomas. You also need your malpractice insurance, which they call professional liability insurance.
Yes, and the limits matter there.
Right. The guide says the recommended limits are often $1 million per occurrence and $3 million aggregate. And you have to have the actual declaration page ready to upload.
You can't just say you have it. You need the proof.
Exactly. Add to that a current CV or resume, background checks, fingerprinting, and professional references.
It is a massive stack of raw materials.
Just to prove you are who you say you are.
And returning to your airport analogy, gathering all of those documents is really just you packing your suitcase at home. You still have to actually get to the airport and go through the security screening.
Which brings us to the actual application phase. And this is where I hit a massive wall of confusion reading Oliver's breakdown.
The portal phase.
Yeah. The guide talks extensively about CAQH ProView. It identifies it as the centralized credentialing portal used by major payers.
Correct. Most of the big ones use it.
And it says providers absolutely must set up or update this profile first.
Yeah.
You enter identifying info like that, 10-digit NPI, your social security number, date of birth, and you upload all those documents we just listed.
All into one place.
So I'm reading this thinking, great. I upload my suitcase to the cloud, the insurers log in, grab my files, and we're done.
If only it were that simple.
Right. Because then, a few paragraphs later, the guide says you still have to apply to each insurance company separately.
Yes, you do.
How does that make any sense?
Well,
if there's a centralized portal, shouldn't it be a simple one-click process?
What's fascinating here is the persistent illusion of centralization in healthcare administration.
The illusion of centralization. I like that phrase.
Yeah, because CAQH ProView is often pitched as this universal solution, but it is really just a baseline database. It speeds up the initial data entry, sure, but it is not a magic finish line.
Okay, so what is it then?
Well, to expand on your airport analogy, CAQH is like having TSA PreCheck.
Oh, okay. So it proves I'm a known, safe traveler.
Precisely. It verifies your core identity to the authorities. But having TSA PreCheck doesn't mean you can just walk onto any airplane you want.
Right, you still need a ticket.
Exactly. You still have to buy a ticket for a specific airline, agree to that airline's specific terms of carriage, and follow their boarding procedures. CAQH is a one-size-fits-some reality.
One size fits some.
Yes, it holds your data, but each individual insurer has their own distinct legal framework, their own reimbursement rate structures, and their own proprietary network requirements.
So it's more like building a really detailed master profile on a job hunting website, but then every single corporation still forces you to navigate away to their own proprietary portal to fill out their specific application.
That is exactly how it functions. Providers still have to complete individual application packets or follow specific portal links for every single insurer.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. And these aren't just quick forms. You have to sign specific contracts or addendums. These individual forms require you to manually re-enter personal details, your practice locations, your tax IDs, your specific clinical specialties.
Even though it's already in CAQH.
Even though it's already there. And crucially, you have to sign attestations and release forms that are legally unique to that specific payer.
The source gives a great example of how granular and specific this actually gets.
The Indiana example, right?
Yeah. It mentions that the state of Indiana publishes a distinct checklist of required documents broken down specifically by therapy specialty.
Which is very telling.
Right. So what a speech therapist needs to provide to get paneled in Indiana might look tangibly different from what an occupational therapist needs to provide in that exact same state.
Because they might need different addendums based on the specific billing codes they use.
Wow. So you really can't just hit a universal submit button on CAQH and walk away expecting to get paid.
No, you absolutely cannot. And once you do finally hit submit on all those individual bespoke portals, you transition into a phase that tests the patience of even the most grounded healthcare professional.
Oh, the waiting game. Or, as I started calling it while reading this deep dive, the 90-day purgatory.
Purgatory is a good word for it.
This is the part of the guide that gets genuinely stressful, because it outlines how a single microscopic mistake can basically reset the clock on your entire business plan.
The typo trap.
Yeah. I was picturing it like a bureaucratic butterfly effect. You make a tiny, seemingly insignificant typo on a form on a Tuesday, and 2 months later you realize it has cost your clinic thousands of dollars in delayed revenue.
The bureaucratic butterfly effect is a very apt description. According to the breakdown in the guide, these initial individual applications contain between 20 and 30 distinct items that need to be verified.
20 to 30 items per application.
Yes, and the processing time is not swift. It takes 60 to 90 days, or sometimes considerably more, just for the insurer to verify the information you submitted.
And what blew my mind was the mechanism of the delay. The errors that cause these massive holdups are so painfully human.
Very simple mistakes.
We are talking about typed typos in NPIs, misspelled names, or transposed numbers in a state license. How does transposing 2 numbers result in a 3-month delay?
Well, it's because it breaks the automated verification chain. When an insurer's system runs your application, it pings the federal CMS database to match your NPI.
Right.
If you typed a 7 instead of a 1, the automated system doesn't just politely prompt you to fix the typo right then and there.
It doesn't give you a little red squiggly line?
No, not at all. It kicks your entire application out of the automated fast lane and drops it into a manual review queue.
Oh, wow.
And that manual review queue might be 60 days deep with other applications.
That is terrifying.
Oh.
And the guide lists other common traps, too,
Yeah.
like mixing up active versus inactive credentials.
Or submitting a training certificate that is illegible because the PDF scan was slightly blurry.
Yes. Or simply forgetting to drop a digital signature on, like, page 14 of a 30-page document. Any of those instantly derail the process.
And we can't forget about the CAQH upkeep during this waiting period either.
Oh, right, the reattestation.
Exactly. CAQH isn't a set-it-and-forget-it system. Your profile must be reattested every 120 days just to stay current.
Every 120 days.
Yes. If you get busy and forget to click that attestation button, insurers will suddenly see your master data as out of date and everything halts again.
Oliver actually offers a really smart pro tip in the article to avoid some of these errors. He suggests creating and including a detailed cover letter that lists every single document you've included in the packet.
That is a very smart strategy.
Right. It basically acts as a map for the human reviewer on the other end, making it harder for them to claim a document is missing when it's just buried on page 20. And of course, the guide stresses keeping copies of absolutely everything and diligently tracking your submission dates. Because if you do miss something, or if the insurer claims something is missing, the way you find out can be pretty jarring.
Yes, the communication methods for corrections vary wildly, and they are rarely in the provider's favor.
Right. The guide points out that Indiana's Medicaid program actually reaches out by phone or email to the provider to ask for corrections, which sounds somewhat reasonable.
That is actually one of the better systems.
But if you are dealing with a commercial insurer using an online portal, providers often have a very strict, unforgiving 21-day window to fix issues.
Just 21 days.
Let's really think about that. If you miss that 21-day window, maybe because the notification email went to your spam folder, or maybe you're just too busy actually treating patients to log into the portal,
Then you have to entirely reapply.
you start from scratch, back at day 0 of the 90-day wait. And if you happen to still be filing on paper, you'll just get a written notice in the mail, which eats up half your correction window just in postage transit time.
The strictness of that 21-day window, combined with the 60 to 90-day processing timeline, provides a very sober reality check for anyone entering this industry.
It really does.
It dictates that in the world of credentialing, administrative thoroughness is just as critical to your survival as your clinical skill.
That is a wild thought.
It's true. You could be the most gifted, intuitive physical therapist in your state, achieving incredible patient outcomes. But if you transpose 2 digits in your 10-digit NPI, and then you miss that 21-day correction window because it went to spam, well, you are financially invisible to the insurance network.
You simply do not exist to them.
Exactly.
Which brings up a massive existential logistical problem for you, the listener.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put ourselves in the shoes of someone opening their own speech therapy clinic tomorrow.
Okay.
You've signed a commercial lease. You are paying for electricity, internet, and equipment. But you are stuck in this 90-day waiting room.
With bills piling up.
Yeah. So how do you actually survive financially? Do you just lock the doors and turn clients away until the insurance company finally emails you back?
Fortunately, you do not have to halt your clinical practice. The source explicitly clarifies that providers can continue seeing clients on an out-of-network or cash pay basis while their paneling applications are pending.
Okay, so the patient pays you directly out of their own pocket at the time of service.
Yes.
But isn't that incredibly hard to pitch to a patient who specifically sought you out, expecting to use their health insurance?
It is a difficult conversation, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You are asking the patient to shoulder the upfront cost. However, the mechanism to alleviate this is that once you are officially credentialed and paneled, you can often file those backdated claims to the insurance company.
Oh, backdated claims. Okay.
Assuming, of course, that you tracked all the billing codes perfectly during the waiting period, and you transparently informed the patients about your pending status from day one. Once the claims process, the patient can be reimbursed.
So it's a lifeline, but it requires a lot of trust from the patient and meticulous record keeping from the therapist.
Absolutely.
And just when you think you've survived the gauntlet, the guide makes a point to say that credentialing isn't a one-and-done deal.
No, it never really ends.
You don't just survive the 90-day purgatory, get your approval, and permanently retire your administrative hat. Providers must revalidate their enrollment every 1 to 3 years, depending entirely on the specific payer's rules.
It is a continuous, inescapable cycle, and the stakes remain incredibly high during revalidation.
How so?
Well, if your state license lapses for even a day, or if your 1 million, 3 million malpractice insurance policy has a brief lapse in coverage, you can immediately lose your in-network status.
Oh, wow. Just like that.
Just like that. The insurers will drop you, and you are back to square one.
Reading all of this, you really start to feel the sheer exhaustion a provider must face, which is why the source text highlights a specific structural solution to this mess.
Prime Credential.
Exactly. The article is hosted on Prime Credential, and they are a company that specializes in streamlining this exact process for therapy providers.
They handle the heavy lifting.
Right. They handle the initial CAQH setup. They meticulously verify all the documents so you don't fall into the typo trap. They track those 120-day deadlines, and they do the aggressive follow-up with the individual insurers.
Which is incredibly time-consuming.
The whole pitch is that by offloading this, therapists can spend less time wrestling with 30-page PDF addendums and more time actually doing what they train to do, treating their patients.
This raises an important question about the modern healthcare landscape.
What's that?
There is a profound underlying tension between being a healthcare provider and being a healthcare administrator.
Yeah, those are two very different skill sets.
Completely different. Most physical, occupational, and speech therapists undergo years of rigorous schooling to master human anatomy, complex neurology, and empathetic patient care.
They didn't major in PDF management.
Exactly. They did not go to school for complex data entry and regulatory compliance tracking. Outsourcing this massive headache to specialized teams, like Prime Credential, is often a highly logical, strategic step for clinics trying to scale.
It makes perfect sense.
It effectively shifts the burden of that bureaucratic butterfly effect entirely off the clinician's shoulders.
It lets the therapist actually be a therapist instead of a part-time data entry clerk. It really does sound like an essential service when you look at the sheer volume of paperwork and the financial risk of making a mistake.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do a rapid wrap-up so you, the listener, have all the absolute key takeaways from Oliver's guide locked in. First, you have to obsessively gather your packing list. That's your 10-digit NPI, your active state licenses, original degrees, and that 1 million, 3 million malpractice declaration page.
Don't forget the background checks and references.
Right. Second, you must utilize CAQH ProView as your central hub, but fully prepare yourself to still tackle bespoke individual insurer paperwork and addendums.
The one-size-fits-some reality.
Yes. Third, you have to triple-check every single keystroke to avoid the 90-day typo trap, and monitor your inboxes like a hawk to stay within those unforgiving 21-day correction windows.
Because a single typo can cost you months.
And finally, you need to plan a robust cash pay and backdated claims strategy to financially survive the waiting period while your applications are pending.
It requires intense diligence, but fully understanding the rigid rules of this system is the only way to successfully navigate it and build a thriving practice.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Thinking about all these disjointed portals, the manual data entry, the blurry PDFs, and the 90-day manual review queues, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
If artificial intelligence and centralized databases continue to evolve at their current blistering pace, Will the entire concept of credentialing portals and 90-day waits become completely obsolete in the next decade?
Oh, that's a fascinating concept.
Right. Imagine a world where your professional identity, your academic transcripts, your state licenses, and your malpractice limits are verified in real time via a secure, immutable blockchain.
Real-time verification.
It could make the traditional insurance panel application a thing of the past, turning a 90-day bureaucratic purgatory into an instantaneous, automated handshake between provider and payer.
That would change everything.
Something to think about as you navigate the clunky systems we are forced to use today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep questioning the systems around you, and we will catch you next time.